Okay, Brian, you talk about external gift, that is dog. Let me go to the very special external gift, that is your daughter. You said that initially you were very scared to be a father,
Yeah,
but you are father. Congratulations.
I am.
Okay, Brian. So what? And one time when we were talking, you said that I learned this because of my daughter. So how? What are the changes you have seen? Okay, let's make it like more narrow. What are the changes related to the understanding people, mental health, and this thing, counseling? What are the changes you have seen in yourself uh, after becoming the father?
Oh, I mean, it's such a different version, and so it's a great journey. It's a horrible journey. It's everything. Um, and so part of it is what's very odd for me is my daughter is now 19 years old, so she's a college student, and so all these years I've been talking to students and talking to parents about how to be a college student. And so all the things I told them, I use a line all the time with parents, which is you while you care how your kid is now, you really want to know how your kid's going to be when they're 30. Your goal is they're going to be this functional, wonderful adult who's successful and independent. And I picked a random number. It could be a different number than 30. It could be 25. It could be 35. I don't know. But you're always in that spot. So part of this is I always had this bigger vision of my daughter. It's like being like don't try to be a billionaire or a millionaire. Like I want to create something really cool that people would like, and then the money will come. And for me, it was always the idea of how do I want my daughter to be when she's 25, 30 years old. And even for me last year, she was going off to college. Not as far as Nepal, but she flew across the country and went to college, 3,000 miles away. And it was like, how can she do all these things? Can she be there? And so my goal wasn't the winning today. My goal was to get to there, that she's able to do these things. And so I began a lot more patience with that. There's a bigger goal that I'm getting to. It isn't winning today. It isn't I got good today. It was always nice to have a good day, don't get me wrong. But it was always the idea of like, can you do these things? Because of my family always talk about death. And if I die, I want her to be able to be fine without me. And so how do you get somebody to be where they don't, part of being a parent is you want to not be needed anymore. I want to be a part of her life, but like there's a point where like I don't need you because I can do all this. And so you slowly build there. And so I became a lot more, especially like working at a college, I became more feeling towards them because I realized they're my daughter's age. They're like, wow. Like it was always, I always cared for people, but it was like, my daughter could be in your shoes. Like, how would I want someone to treat my daughter? And that was always my thought all the time. I always want a parent to go, I would treat them like how you would treat your kid. And that was always my idea to do that. And so, but having a kid now, it makes me be much more reflective, much more observant. And going through the process, you realize you don't control as much as you think.
Brian, in the beginning you say that you try not to bring your emotion. Wait, I don't know whether you say or not, but I was reading like counselor do not try to bring their emotion in the situation. Am I right or not?
I would say no. I don't usually say you're. I would say kind of. I don't want to be. I use an analogy with people, which is I know GPS has improved, so there's an example. It doesn't fit as much anymore. But everybody knows when you have a map and you have to walk somewhere, you don't know which way to start walking right away. Every time, like, now it's getting better where they point with the direction.
Yeah.
But usually, whenever you're like, which way is that? When you start walking, oh, it's the wrong way. You have to go back or something. So I always use the analogy in counseling as emotions is your compass. You, if I'm emotional, it's telling me, it leads me in the right direction I need to go. And then like there's a map, and the map is all this logic and where everything is. But your compass tells you, I need to go north. And if you don't know, if you're just doing a map, you know the city, but you don't know where you're going. A compass will lead you, like if I said I have to go back to my office right now, I'd run out these windows. I don't want to be emotional enough where I just follow emotion. I'd run, like that'd be bad. That would hurt. And so I know I have to walk the other way to go the way I want to go. And so emotion, if you don't listen to your emotion, your passion, what does this mean to me? What's my compass with this? I'm always trying to go, what is my compass? Which way is this facing? Because that, so emotion leads me in the right direction. So when I'm with somebody, I'm going, why, when I'm with, is it really in the weeds counseling thing? If I'm like, why am I annoyed by what you're saying right now? I'm listening to myself, not in a negative way towards you, or why am I really sad by what you're saying right now? That tells me, like, why am I thinking that? What is it about the story that, what is it? And then I can think logically how to get there. But I need to know, like, what direction I'm facing.
Oh,
So I use emotion all the time. I don't use emotion like, I don't do that. But I use emotion in a way where I'm always trying to feel, because you don't know what someone's trying to, like, tutoring, when someone comes in for tutoring, they might need to know how to do 2 plus 3. But there's probably a bigger question, which is like, should I be in college? Am I smart? Can I really do this? Is this the major for me? That's not your job to answer that. But if you know that there's fear underneath this, or my parents are gonna be really mad at me if I don't get a good grade, or I'll lose my scholarship, or as a tutor that there's a lot of other things going on right then. And if you can just kind of relate to someone, if you can just tell somebody, take a breath, we've got this. Here, okay, hey, great job. Like, if you can build them up, then you answer their other questions. Because you know that they're scared. They're not just like, truly tell me how to do something.
okay, Brian. I want to point out somewhere else. Let me say. You said that you include a little bit emotion. For example, let me give an example. Like you said, when someone is coming, like a girl came, and you always try to put that, like, see what if my daughter will be on that situation at this moment. For example, it might be different with the age. For example, if even some of boys are random boys, like if a boy
Yeah.
just tease my daughter, I think I can slap in the 1 second. Even though I will not think I will slap. But even though if that is not my daughter, I will think maybe I will process a little more. It will not affect that much. If you put other girl on that shoe and think, you will respond very quickly. Or is this because of my age I'm thinking like that? How
Well,
is it?
no. So I'm going to go over a really. This bizarre was my daughter's college essay, and so I remember this. It was a very distinct moment. So she was probably like, my daughter was probably like 7 or 8 years old, and we were at this place where there's a play area, and the adults are outside, and there's this fenced-in area, and these kids were there, and my daughter was in there, and she was building. It was a Lego place, and she was building this tower. And this little kid comes up and just tries to shove her tower over. And so as a parent, I'm like, but like there's this fence, I can't get there. There's nothing I can do. And there's this moment where my daughter, who is a pretty, she's an only child and is pretty nice and doesn't have to have the fight in her type of thing. But this little kid came over, and I just remember distinctively like wanting, like, this little creep, I was gonna swear there, but like this little creep, I wanted to slap this kid. And she held on to that tower, and she looked at the kid and went, no. And said, I'm building this. Help me build this. And she got this kid to come over, and then all these kids came over and built this big ass tower with her. I'm so grateful I couldn't have jumped in. And it was a spot where I went, it was a moment like, my kid's gonna be okay. She knows how to stand up for herself. And so part of life is failing and suffering. We don't ever want to talk about that. Part of life is being bullied a little bit. It's being not invited when you wanted to be invited. Hurt makes us get better. And mistakes where I should have done that. And that's where, like, you don't let go of it, but you go, the next time I get to a situation like this. So for me, I like watching her fail, because I know then she's gonna have to figure it out herself.
Okay, cool. I think, okay, so what is the couple of messages you want to give? Because you are very experienced about the human behavior, you work with
Sure.
the kids. What is the message you want to give for the parents? Like, not, what is the better way of nurturing the kid?
And this is the part where, like, you asked me before, of like, on social media, there's always the different ways. There's no right way. There's one thing I've also learned, that every person, every human, you know this from just your own experience, every person is different. That's the thing about, my sister had a funny line when her son was born. She's like, is there an instruction manual that came out of there too? It's like, you don't know what motivates people. Um, the one thing I would say is everybody's at a different pace, and that and if a person, there's a person I just was talking to that just graduated college at 26 years old, and they were like, oh, I didn't do well. I'm like, no, you were perfect. Other people, some people graduate college by 18 years old, some, overachiever or something like that. But like, run your race. Learn how you learn. We have these terms like learning disabilities, and I'm good at math, I'm not good at math. Yeah, but you can be better at everything. And so I think part of this is if you dedicate yourself to it. Some things are harder for people. I'm not good at certain things; they don't come natural to me. But like I can get better at it. Like drawing, I'm not a good art person, but I've gone to art classes and like, oh, that's not awful. I could probably, if I kept working on it, if I really cared about it, I could get better. I'd never be a true artist, but I could be decent at it. And so I think part of this for people is don't evaluate the full outcome when you're just in the middle of doing it. And so there's always, what's a famous, like Thomas Edison said, I had a hundred failures, I had 100 learning opportunities before I found the light bulb.
Like for me.
You have to fail, and I would tell people failing, don't do it stupidly. But the scientific method of try something, do that didn't work. I mean, I've eaten a lot of bad meals that I've made going, I think I know what I'm doing. Like, nope, that wasn't very good. Like, what did we do wrong? And how did we need to do that the next time? And if you look at life like it's this constant level of learning. And so I think for parents, it's always that level of like, what does your kid need at this moment? And not a lot of times people want to do what they just want to get done with it versus like, this is just the moment you're in.
Okay, thank you. Uh, Brian, correct me because I was not able to get it 100% right. I'm not sure. You said this is Brian 8.7 version or 9 version. What is?
I told that to you the other day, and I don't know
Yeah.
what version I'm on, but
So
like if I, I,
yeah.
I didn't look at my operating system yet.
Okay, so what is the Brian version and what is that exactly and why do you call that version? I think please explain in very detail about
Sure.
the
So,
version and what is that?
yeah, so let me go over, like, so earlier in our conversation, I talked about assimilation and accommodation. And so I always think of assimilation is like if I went 8.7 to 8.8, that's assimilation. Same operating, just a couple changes. When you go to 9.0, that's accommodation.
Okay.
And so what I've had to do, just kind of like certain creatures, like caterpillars turn to butterflies, that I think as human beings, I remember someone had talked about, and I don't know the exact, I know I'm going to not quote this exactly right, which is like, your physical being really changes like every like 9 days. Like your skin, who you are externally, your hair fall. By the time you get a certain place where like you've become a whole different person because of the way the body works.
Yeah.
Like your fingernails grow out. I can't remember how long it takes for all the parts to grow and all that stuff. But like, so we become this different version. So I think, like what you mentioned earlier, like what one was like being a dad. Well, that was I became that jumped to a whole different version of me because like it was like, oh, like this is it. I have to see things differently. And so I remember very distinctively just a few moments in life that where like I had to see the world really, really differently. And and instead of like this goes back to being it's okay to be wrong. And so one of the things that I would say is that anybody should just be willing to go that I just did it wrong. I did it. I mean, I look back at parts of my life with like, I think I was mean to people like when I was in middle school and like I feel bad about like I can't change that, but I'm going to be a better person because that I don't want to be like that, or and I'll be a better dad to get my daughter to be more like that, or things like that. And so 8.7 is just my joke of it of what it would be. But it's like I'm always in that place where like I bizarrely had to pick up an old iPhone the other day. And it was like, oh my God, this is so weird and different. When you go to an old version of it, you're like, this is wrong. But that was right at the time. And so you become a different, it's like clothing where I love this shirt. And then like you go and you go, I don't really like this shirt anymore. And so I think that willingness to be a different person and willingness to change how you identify, willingness to be just a different way because life is different and it's okay to adapt.
And the more you adapt, the more version you become.
Well, I just think that you know this stuff like technology. Like if you don't adapt, I mean, like things that we go, this is absolutely but 10 years later, like if we looked at like what we did on what games we played a lot of times, all these things, if you just maintained, it doesn't succeed. And so you have to not always change for the just to do it for change sake, but to become a better version of what this is.
Sounds good. I like the version concept of yours.
Yes.
Uh, Brian, you, I think this, I mentioned this couple of times, like you have massive experience in this field. What are the some common myth or stereotype about counseling or therapy that you have come across so far?
I mean, it can range everything from common misperceptions, like you have to be crazy to go to counseling.